what it's like in the mind of a conscious female, because I feel like I can tap into my own feminine nature, but it's still um, convoluted by all my masculine nature. So I'm very interested to hear if my intuitions about my own feminine side are accurate, and also just to see how women think, especially when they're expanded, when they are true to themselves, because I feel like a lot of women that I talk to are not. So it's interesting to hear what you guys have to say.
Mm,
Cool.
love that. Rhonda, thank you for saying my name properly. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
I hardly hear it because it's hard for people to pronounce here. So as Rhonda mentioned, my name is Emanuele. I was born and raised in Italy, so I grew up with a very different idea of women. Not necessarily saying that the right idea of women or the more respectful idea of women, because as I grow up, I noticed that maybe some of our things were not necessarily great either. But very much, and that's one of the things that I hold dear, is very much a matriarchal kind of society. Very much was raised around very strong women. And now with the work that I've done, I recognize how strong they were, but yet they weren't necessarily aware or conscious of their own power. Mostly because I don't think it was kind of okay or kind of allowed or kind of looked at that way, and very much in the way that women were meant to be moms and kind of take care of things. And I have a amazingly smart mom that decided to just be a rock star mother, to which I'm extremely grateful for. But then now I see her, my little sister is older, I'm older, and I kind of see her like rediscovering herself, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm kind of like, shit, you could have done it sooner, right? So it kind of leaves me in that space of like, if it ever happens that I have a daughter, right? Like, how do I encourage it? How do I support? Which brings the very first question I have, which is, a lot has changed, supposedly, right? On how you women are looked at, how you are understood, appreciated, respected. But has it? Like, how does life look like now? Like, how does it feel? And it's good because I think we have a range of ages that really allows us to like look at that, like before, during, and hopefully all together we can kind of paint a like after. So I'll just open up the floor.
Who would like to go first?
And if you hear like a loud snoring going on, it's my English bulldog that is under my desk. So I apologize for that.
Well, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
No, Allie, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's the question again? I mean, no, I'm sorry.
Pretty
It's
much
definitely like different now than it used to be. So like, what's the question you want us to kind of attack? Like,
just maybe like how it's different, or how we as men feel like, hey, it's completely different, but is it really? Like, how is it to be? Is it easier for now to be in your masculine? Are you allowed to still be in your feminine, but yet take care of a household? Does that feel okay? What is the relationship with your partner? Are you both able to grow at the same time? Or do you feel like as a woman, you're still very much like the mom? Or do you have to keep on that mama role? Kind of like walking.
A lot of questions, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of walking down that.
I would like I'll throw something out there, because my husband and I are at a very interesting point right now, because he's in a wedding with a very close friend, and I'm close friends with the bride, and we are both like, he was just at a bachelor party and I'm going to a bachelorette party this weekend. So those are very extreme situations where the genders are kind of like at polar opposites, right? And a lot of things happen stereotypically at a bachelor party and a bachelorette party. So we've been having a lot of conversations about this since we've started doing this kind of inner work of becoming expanded. And the conversations are very different than they were when we were in our early 20s. So in our early 20s, I felt like I needed to be open to certain things that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with in order to be like the cool girlfriend, you know, like in order to be cool or, you know, not a buzzkill for him to go to like a strip club or something without me when like I really wasn't okay with it. And I felt like I needed to be because of whatever standard I held myself to or whatever standard like I thought I needed to adhere to in order to be considered like cool. And now when we're having conversations about it, you know, we're in our 30s now, and when he was on his way to go, I'm like, yeah, I'm not fucking cool with it. And I feel like I was never that way before I started feeling more comfortable in who I am and what I believe in. And maybe I won't feel that way 10 years from now. It's just like the way that I feel right now is I'm not okay with that. And we've just had conversations about, well, is he comfortable with me going to like a male strip club? And it's just like these conversations that we're having now are totally different than when we were in our early 20s, and maybe they'll be totally different than when we are where we are 10 years from now. So I feel like the concept of being expanded as a female in this conversation is just being true to whoever you are in this moment and being okay with what that looks like. So that's how it is for me. It's just right now with where we are in our relationship and where I am in my consciousness, I'm not okay with that. And, you know, we're even having conversations about porn and how we feel about things like that, and not to like dive too deep into it right away, but
I mean, this is what we're doing, right? Like,
yeah, I
if
feel
you
like,
want to just kind of jump in, we're
like we're just,
yeah.
I used to feel like, you know, I watched porn with like my guy friends when we were in high school because like we were just like, oh, this is like cool, something ridiculous to watch. But you know, the more I thought about it, the more I allowed myself to think about how I actually felt about things like that, the more I was like, yeah, like I don't want my husband going to strip clubs, or I'm not okay with my husband watching those things without me there. So I guess really my thesis of this whole thing is the more I am true to myself, the more comfortable I am to say how I really feel about those things and how I feel about my partner engaging in those activities.
Yeah.
Well, and as women, like it's not necessarily that like that creates a stop, that it just creates dialogue and an opportunity for us to be in conversation and to grow through it. And I think that's like the part that's probably the most different for me. And I'll just share quickly because there's lots of ladies for this call. But you know, growing up, I think I had a really shitty attitude toward women. Even being a woman, and I didn't celebrate women, and I kind of downgraded women a little bit, and at times probably was disparaging or disrespectful. And it's fascinating when you really don't love yourself, when you don't have that self-love piece, the way we look at other people and the way we view sexuality and, you know, the porn industry or strippers or any of those industries. Like, it's much different when we have self-worth and self-value. No way am I saying that a woman who is in pornography or is a stripper doesn't have self-love or self-worth. It's different for every single one of us. But I know when I was younger in my days, like I didn't have that capability. So it was just more about trying to feed a need in me. So kind of abandoning everything and betraying myself to try and feel love and acceptance and stuff. And now as I'm older, after sitting with it for some time, it's quite different and doing a lot of work. So as an expanded woman, I'm not in a relationship, but I really believe that my work specifically has been achieving a lot of the things in my life and being a lot of the things I needed in my life that I was looking for someone else to be for me, I needed to come to myself. And that's really been my work, is becoming the greatest love of my life and becoming whole in myself, and, you know, creating companies and becoming the person that can finish things. So, you know, that's kind of where the journey's been for me. So where I was kind of taught, I had really expensive taste when I was young, and my mom always used to jokingly say, you need to marry a rich man, as opposed to, you know, hey, you need to figure out like how to be successful in life and how to do things for yourself so that you can have the things you want. So that paradigm's really switched for me.
And I love you brought that up, right? Like that word, like that paradigm is really shifted.
I
How
think
so?
Cher
And
said,
like,
oh, sorry.
yeah, no,
I think Cher said that quote, Rhonda, have you heard it? Where her mom says, you need to marry a rich man. And she said, I am a rich man.
Yeah, no, but I love that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we think of.
Yeah.
So my question leading on to that, right, is I am blessed with many women in my life. There are amazing entrepreneurs. I'm partnered with one. And but do you feel okay? Do you feel good having that role? Do you feel good being the provider? And how does that dynamic look like? So are you, if you're in a partnership and you are the provider, are you the sole provider? Does your partner help out? Does that make you feel that you're able to be in your feminine? And how do you like being supported in that moment, right? Like, what does support look like for a empowered business woman, or for an empowered woman, period, without needing to be necessarily business, right?
I think Carrie should answer this question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm not. I mean, I grew up in a Catholic family, so you obey, you know, you fill that role. I always felt like I was a pleaser, and I had to do right by everybody else's decision. And got married fairly young, had 4 kids, was pretty much consistently the sole provider. I mean, he had a job, but it was in and out, and I had 2 or 3 jobs. Craziness. Doing everything, but it got me sick. So then got a divorce. And so I just shut everybody out, and I just focused on my kids. And so through that, I think I took on, like, I mean, I had been in major masculine energy anyway. I mean, I had to have the feminine with my kids, but there was no self-care. And then as I moved forward, that masculine energy has always been very strong. I mean, even when I was in school, I remember that's all I hung out with were guys. I didn't hang out with the women. I just felt like they were all petty bitches, you know, and I was different. I don't know. But those, as I've moved through and learned on that, those petty bitches are really important. not the petty bitches ones, but the other ones. Because without those connections, that feminine connection, you're never whole, or I was never whole. But I never allowed myself to show who I truly was. And I sent a text to Rhonda earlier today, and the Meredith Brooks song, Bitch, came on the radio. And it's like, I'm a bitch, I'm a whore, I'm a lover, and it goes everything in between. And I said, that's like my goal right now, is no matter what relationship I'm in, is I'm going to be all those things, because all those things are me, and I'm going to be proud of all those things. And whoever I'm in a relationship with, I want support in that. I mean, it won't always be pretty. It won't always be whatever, the way it's supposed to look, but it is the way it's supposed to look. And I want someone to see who I am, and I want to show up as me. And that's a huge risk, because I mean, I didn't date anybody for 14 years. I was divorced for 16. And then I got in a relationship, and it was totally a freaking bomb. But I learned a lot. You know, I stood up for myself a lot. but now it's trying to figure out, okay, so how do you find somebody who's like that? Because there's so much, like the guy I was dating was such a nice guy. Everybody's like, what the hell? He had money, he was nice, he took care of you, but there was no freaking support. You know, I got a lot of things. I got a lot of, I don't know, showing off type of thing, but there wasn't that support emotionally or psychologically of, or that I know another thing that was missing was there was no sharpening back and forth. I don't want to freaking be like a pretty girl on your shoulder. I don't want to just have money. I want to be sharpened, and I want to sharpen back whoever I'm with. So instead of being that pleaser way back when and being so concerned with what everybody else wants, I want to be somebody who can help somebody become better, but at the same token, at different times, they need to help me be a better person as well and call me on my shit, you know? But I don't know how to find that, because there's so much superficialness that I feel like not the only, but this group is where I have experienced more connection, and I don't even freaking know half these people. You know, I've met you on video, and that's it, or on Facebook, but I feel closer and more connected because we're actually true and we're real and exposed. Even my shitty spots have, you know, shown out at times. So it's just it's way different than it was before. But it's hard because you lose a lot of relationships that you thought were important, but then you look back and you're like, oh, or I look back and I'm like, oh, there was no relationship. I mean, I've always said I've had tons of acquaintances, but no really close friends. And the few close friends I had were mostly male. But then, you know, I don't even know how close they were. So, because I still wouldn't talk about most things like this with them.
Right. Well, male relationships are safe, right? Like male relationships are pretty easy. It's pretty.
Yeah, you're not going to be judged the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And with women, we're going to get deep, or we can't trust. And like, that's been my experience, is not to trust women.
100%.
Awesome. Okay. I'm like, that was awesome. Like, that was just such a, like, that kind of set the tone for like the rest of the call. And when we just jumped on, you told us that you just came back from a hunting trip, right? So it's kind of like, it's funny because they're all these like things that are like, okay, she can be the provider, she can be smart, she can be tough, she can need you when you need her, and she can go hunting. So really, like, as a man, I'm just like, okay, like what the fuck would I do in that relationship, right? Like, she doesn't need me, like, what am I, you know what I mean? Like, what, right? But then I totally understand the aspect of like iron sharpens iron, right? Which is funny because we had this man call last week, and in kind of different words was kind of like the same concept, right? Like, conscious men are looking for conscious women because it's exhausting. As a man is the opposite. Sometimes you feel like you're walking through the jungle with a machete and you have to like make the way, and then you have to walk backwards and pick up your partner and get her to the edge of where you just got through, and then you start all over again. And it's just this like exhausting thing. So Carrie said a lot. I saw a lot of heads kind of moving and kind of agreeing and kind of feeling. So who has something that kind of has come up to the surface that they would kind of like to talk about? And you can just kind of raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Renee, yes.
So I've now achieved an age that indicates that I'm an elder. I've also lived in 8 US countries, 8 US states, 9 countries. So my perception is really different. My background, my biological family was Lutheran, extremely conservative, conforming And I kept who I was a secret because I came in open and connected to multiple realities with no barrier around the self, very unprotected, very unsafe. So one of the things that I've noticed is that if the paradigm shift is going to happen, there has to be a third energy. We have to get out of this masculine feminine because it's a dualistic setup. And the essence of your being is not that. So I can pick any avatar that's been mentioned and more. The question I have is that really aligned with my essence? And for me, that question eliminates at least 90% of the people I'm going to interact with. Because I'm now in the deep end of the ocean and people want to start at the shallow water, and I don't have a shallow water. I'm not shallow, I'm not superficial, and I notice there are overlays, and each generation has different overlays that unless they address those overlays, there are programs running them. And for me, as I would say, a very expanded woman, I've got a female body. My greatest capacity was healing sex addicts and being a courtesan. And a courtesan doesn't exist in this culture. But those are my greatest capacities, is being the third woman that triangulates, and in some periods of time that was approved upon. It was at least tolerated. And so what that brought in were people that were experimenting, polyamory. They were experimenting in different types of relationships. What they weren't doing was relating with the part of themselves that was wounded, and they would bring all that wounding in and project it everywhere. So the fact that they were polyamorous, now they've got a shit show. You know, they're projecting their stuff everywhere. And women have been trained in at least most societies to be competitive with each other. So when you have polyamory and you've got women that don't know how to be kind to themselves and don't trust themselves with other women, I was never in a polyamorous relationship. Men came to me as clients they told me they were polyamorous, and I would just very say, no, you're just afraid of intimacy. And to me, it's not just men and women confuse sex with intimacy. And those are big. I mean, you could take that conversation and make it a topic in your call. So the fact that I'm now in my early 60s, which I didn't expect on living that long, which is an interesting thing to admit. I've taken really good care of my body, but people view you as a woman. Once they've got your edge figured out, you're actually not even relevant anymore. So I'm finding I'm having to reestablish everything. Who am I as a human? Who am I as a woman? How do I wish to contribute? And how do I relate to other people, especially men? Because a conscious partnership requires that they don't need me. I don't need to be needed. So the paradigm shift, healthy relationships are based on not needing. And that's a big ask. And we're back to the wholeness concept. So if you are whole and you are establishing that wholeness is your home and your go-to, then to me, I think, Carrie, one of the things is that I'm trusting that I will magnetize that energetic expression into my life, but not likely through Facebook. You know, I call it the sod book, by the way, and thank you for laughing. If I didn't have a world audience, I would have catapulted off that crazy, but I'm going to use it as a trampoline. It's also, you know, it's also interesting to see how quickly people feel safe in their assumptive patterns. You know, a lot of it is just assumptive patterning. The wisdom I carry now, because I've really been taken to task on the embodiment piece, and I'm happy to say that I've accomplished it. It was nothing like I imagined it would be. And how I am now is really entirely new. I really don't have a sense of how do I go from here other than moment to moment, minute to minute, hour to hour. And coming on a platform like this is actually a huge stretch. Huge, huge, huge stretch. Because the first thing I notice when I get on here is that I'm old enough to be all of your parents. Now, that's an interest. Now, is that me or is that a program running? Is that an overlay? It's a filter. And yet, it's something that I would say, it's more in the United States also. I will say that I have better relationships with men that are not born in the US for many reasons. But I would say that, the way that men and women have learned to relate, especially sexually in the United States, is very immature. They're, and maybe they're going to shift it, maybe they're not. I just don't have time for it. It's just it's arduous, as you said. It's just exhausting. And at some point you value your life and you value your life force. And to me, that's what sexual energy is. It's your life force. So do you want other people, you want someone that's going to value their life force and create some type of partnership where you get to move in life, grow. But this idea that you grow together, I just don't think it's real.
I think it can be.
I'm so
For some,
you're here.
I think.
Before Rhonda says anything, sorry. I'm just
no, sorry.
grateful you're here. It's
Yeah.
it's not accidental. And like, regardless what your earth age is or whatever you identify with, just the calmness that came the moment you started speaking. It's just such a clear example of kind of the journey you've been through and the sense of peace that you have within you. So I'm really just, first of all, grateful that you came out of where you live physically and mentally to just kind of hang out and kind of share an hour of your time with us. Now I'll let Rhonda say what she wanted to say.
Well, I was just going to say that I can very much relate to the part of becoming invisible. I'm 44 and I really noticed this last couple of years that I've really become invisible, and it's a really interesting, it is a program, but it's also a culture. It's also a way of being. It's also how I carry myself, the confidence, my not needing and seeking approval through dress, the things that I used to do that were extra to get attention, right? I don't choose that for myself anymore. So I don't really know, when that actual time happens, but I'm 44 and it's fascinating to have that peace as women, because men just get better, right? That's what they say, is men just get better. And if it's a conscious man, regardless of his age, and he's turning salt and pepper, he's very interesting. And as women, we age. So that conversation is fascinating. And I have a lot of friends who do a lot of Botox and a lot of fillers and a lot of things. And it's as a woman choosing to do this holistically and naturally and organically, you're going to see more age on me than you are on someone else. So yeah, I can.
I love that you brought that up, and I'll speak only for myself, right? Because I can't speak about all men. I find that so much more attractive and so much more interesting than what the norm is, right? And to me, my wife jokes that I have mommy issues, but I find older women much more attractive than younger women, just because there is that life aspect to it, right? There is that the realness of I don't need you to be who you think I need you to be. I need you to be you. Because if you are who I think you are, then I know you. You're my kind of creation, right? but that's not real. That's not fun. That doesn't excite me. That doesn't, interest me. But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's interesting, right? Even in this moment, that was sad. And then the three men on this call are like, hell no, that's not true.
No, I totally agree with that. Actually, both points that you made. And it took me a while to figure out why, because a lot of the men around me had that same attraction to the heavy makeup, the lips, the Botox, the fillers, all of that shit. And this is years ago. Kind of took me a little while to figure out why that wasn't as attractive to me. And I think the correlation there was that a woman, and obviously this is my own conjecture and perception, and it could be totally different on the inside for the feminine, but my perception of that was that those women were not as comfortable in their own skin and were trying to either compete with other women on a physical exterior level or trying to live up to what they thought men wanted. And maybe they probably do. They were just trying to live up to the wrong men's, expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out that that's kind of where my disconnect was I saw that as a lack of internal grounding and confidence and presence and love for themselves in their body as they were. And I've seen, I will partially echo your appreciation as well. It's really tough for me to connect with younger women. And as I get older and as I date, some people joke that, oh, he's getting older and the girls stay the same age. It doesn't appeal to me. I appreciate that life experience. And in many cases that like zero fucks that comes with it. Like, I've been around, I've dealt with all you little fuck boys. I'm done with that. I know who I am. And that's so much more attractive. And just, I've always said, just age gracefully, men or women, because I run into the gym and I'll see these guys that have just as much Botox.
Yeah.
And it's just, love your body the way it is and the changes that it goes through and the time, and that just shows the experience and all of it. So no, you nailed it, man.
Yeah. I saw a guy the other day at the gym, completely unrelated topic, that had implants in his calves. They look like hot dogs. Like it looked like he had a hot dog in his leg. But again, like, it's not a sense of like needing to judge, right? But like, to me, it's like,
God.
do you want to do those things for you? Like, do you really? And that's beyond the point, right? Like, if you have issues with the way that your own body looks, and it's a real thing for you, and you need to resort in some help, so be it. But what's funny is that I feel I was in Tulum a couple of weeks ago, and like, one of the person I spoke to is like, yeah, season starts, the winter starts, and all these beautiful girls come, and they've got their boobs done and their lips done and the things done, and the guys are all like jacked up and they're like great, and then they meet in that moment and they're super physically attracted to each other, and then they go home and all the lights go away, and then the lips need to be retouched up, and then the guy stops going to the gym for a couple of days, and then just like everything goes away, because there's not that being to being connection, is that like brain to eye connection, right? Is that eye candy moment that you're just like, well, that's nice, but there's nothing else there.
I'll add the very small disclaimer to that, that I get it. I mean, even myself, I go to the gym and I go hiking. I do all these things, yoga, exercise. And most of it is because it makes me feel better. But part of it is also that vanity of, I do like to look good. And I guess I would say the disclaimer to all of that is, if you're doing anything extra, the elective stuff, if it's good and it's quality, you shouldn't be able to tell. And that's, just keeping natural and not trying to make it so overtly in your face that you're doing all of that. That's my 2 cents.
Right, but then there's that whole piece, like where before I think we were just basing everything on physical chemistry and that connection we have with people for chemistry. And there's spiritual chemistry, there's intellectual chemistry, there's emotional chemistry. Like there's all these different kinds of chemistry that have really been, especially in my own life, more like aware. And I was like, we only have physical chemistry, that's not enough. And for me, a person like, this is just for me, but a person that's electing to do those things is like still not comfortable in their being. Like there's still not a level of groundedness in it. So again, it's a choice everyone gets to make for themselves. And if you have a nose that you're just super uncomfortable with, I understand, like if you want to have some reconstruction or there's something that's like really that for yourself. But if you see the pattern is once you begin those procedures, they don't end. It just keeps going because you keep needing to be more and do more and such. So yeah, so it's really touching on that fact that there's so many different chemistries that can happen between people besides just the physical one.
I wanted to hint on that, what you just said, Rhonda, connecting it back to what Renee was talking about. The physical chemistry is then diluted by all these like falsehoods that we create. And what I really felt when Renee was talking was like a total deprogramming. Like you're embodied in a female body, Renee, but I feel your feminine energy, but I don't feel that you are just a woman. I feel like the deeper levels of you and me as a male or as a human male, that is super attractive. That's like one of the most attractive things that I could think of is deprogramming. Our entire society is based off of the patriarchy. It's all about the right hand, the right eye. Our entire like government systems across most nations are masculine driven. And so the programming goes to such a level that to find a glimpse of somebody that is not programmed that way or has deprogrammed themselves, for me, is the most attractive thing. It's just such a beautiful quality to have, whether you're male or female, to not be programmed, to not pay attention to what you were raised in or what society has told you to think. That's all I wanted to share, is that we dilute ourselves so much that our true chemistry doesn't come through, even myself included. It happens so often that we are fake, or not potent is the word I want to use when thinking of chemistry. Don't dilute yourselves.
Well, as
Well said.
women, I think for me, like there was so much programming when I was little about like being thin enough or being something enough, and like getting comfortable with my juicy body the way my body is, and learning to like be in myself and be sexual in myself with my body, and to not like have that negative self-talk. I mean, I watched so many of my friends turn 40 and they're like, oh my God, I'm 40. And I'm like, where did you learn how to do that? Like, you're 40. 40's rad. And like, who taught you that? Like, that was a program. Like, we don't have to be in that way. And, I have so many amazing sisters who really promote themselves online, Allie being one of them, who really just like enjoy their bodies and like share their bodies in the way. And it's not all the time. We all go through that conversation, but it's such a practice.
Go for it, Abby.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about that, Rhonda, when you said that. So I just want to say I've had to have a lot of like deprogramming and relearning what it is to be feminine. And I was feeling that and thinking about that when you were talking, Renee, like what does it actually mean to be feminine and to be like an expanded woman. And I've had to relearn, or I guess I don't even know if I'm there yet. I've had to kind of figure out, and I'm still on that path and figuring out like what it means to be feminine for me, because I grew up thinking that meant to be a mother, and that meant that like if you were a woman, like you were meant to have babies. And when my body totally failed in having a baby and my kid died, like I was like, so maybe I'm not a good woman then? Like maybe I failed, my body failed. What is my body good for then if it's not to carry a baby? So in that whole process, like I've tried to figure out how do I love and celebrate my body with trying to reprogram myself for what it means to be a woman outside of, maybe, and I don't know the answer yet, because maybe my body will carry a baby someday, but it hasn't yet. So I've had to try to figure out how to love myself as a woman now. And in my relationship with my husband, that's been positive in some ways, and that's posed, barriers between us in some ways, because I've really struggled with that, and he's struggled to like meet me there. Because similar to what you were saying, Emmanuel, he's like, I love you, even though your boobs are really saggy now that you had a baby. And he's like, they're so beautiful and they're this and that. And to me, and I'm like, no, they used to be way up here and now they're way down here. And I hate them now. And those conversations are really messy and interesting. And me trying to love myself and him trying to love me through me trying to figure out how to love myself has just been really complicated and messy. And sorry, I don't have a lot of answers for, how to figure out through that. I'm in the middle of that shit right now. So
yeah, but that's
okay
such
to be in the middle of it.
yeah, but that's such a good thing, right? It's just like it's a daily thing of I have a little sister, she's 21, 22. I have a wife, which is my age, she's 30, and I have a mom, right? And regardless of, and I have friends. I have beautiful women friends, and it's the same way, right? Like how do I, as a man, as a conscious man, as an expanded man, how do I give you this love that I have for you in the way that how you look, in the way that how you feel, in the way to how you show up for me?
Yeah.
And how do I show you that like I'm good with you. You're not good with you, but that's okay. That's your path, right?
Yeah.
So how does that love work? Like how do you receive that love in that moment? What does that look like? And if your partner is in that moment, right? Because kind of the point of this call is for women to express themselves, but it's also for men to hopefully like watch back and be like, okay, I can figure some shit out today. When you're in that moment, right? And we can feel it, we see you looking yourself in the mirror and we hear the judgment, even if it's not outwardly spoken, right? And we see it in the clothes you pick, everything, right?
The biggest thing is acknowledging that how I feel is valid. Like he used to be like, no, no, you're wrong, you're beautiful. And like it's come like full circle where he's like, I understand how you feel and I think you're beautiful. And I just want to be here for you and how you feel. And that's been like, I mean, we've been together since we were 21 years old. There's no fucking way he would have said that to me when we were 21. You know what I mean? But that's like, 10 years of being together. But it used to be detrimental when he would tell me that how I was feeling was wrong or I was wrong, thinking that I wasn't beautiful. And now he just acknowledges how I feel as valid. And that's made it feel very different.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Thing, right? Of not needing to fix it, because that's a man thing, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a man programming thing of like she's experiencing feelings, so I don't know what to do. So I'm just gonna like do something, right?
Feelings are valid. I'm not gonna try to fix them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. There's about 9 minutes left to the hour. So I wanted to see if maybe the people that haven't spoken have anything to say, or if anybody else that has spoken already has kind of had some more realization or thoughts that they want to share, just to hear back from you guys.
Well, I'll say something quick just in relation to what Ali said and what she kind of brought up in me. because I had breast cancer and had a bunch of surgeries, and I think it's so amazing that you were in touch with yourself enough to eventually explain to your husband, and that he would be there with you, in that it wasn't okay for him to disregard how you were feeling. Because mine was the opposite. I mean, he was just like, you're not a woman anymore. And I never realized how much that hurt me. Because his comment was that you don't even have any women parts. You don't know how to be a woman anymore. And it took me a long, long time to have that self-love back, to go, what the fuck? My body is not my womanness. That's not my femininity. That's not my love. So it's awesome that you stayed in that. And I mean, it took me years to figure that out, that piece, and to stand up for myself. And the relationship that I was recently in, one of his comments was, but you make me happy. And I'm like, fuck me making you happy. I don't want that responsibility. We have to be happy ourselves. We have to love ourselves. And then we can be together in that love, and it can intertwine or whatever. But don't fucking put that on me. Either way it goes, you know, whether it's me saying what you should be or you saying what I should be, that, no, can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, girl.
You know, I
I
just
love
want to
that.
add one piece.
Yeah.
You know, we were in Philadelphia
Bernadette.
and I wore this amazing dress and it was totally revealing, like lots of boobs hanging out. And I'm not really like a boob hanging out kind of gal. And E could sense how uncomfortable I was in like my own skin. And he's like, girl, just let your boobs. And he's like, just let your girls out. He's like, you look great. And it was so funny because, you know, E and I have many different facets to our relationship. So, and it just made me feel better. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be how we talk, how we receive that from different men and different people is obviously going to be different. Because, you know, if some other guy told me that, I'd be like, fuck you. But he was doing it out of a place of love. So that piece is too. But I have to be comfortable in myself and learn to love me in the body that I'm in now, not the body that I've always like tried to have. So
Yeah.
Carrie, that story always touches me so much when you tell it, because it's like so indicative of like your story's been so heavy, and your work has been so deep, but how beautiful you shine and love yourself now.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Still working on it.
I got lots of love for you, Carrie, too.
Thank you.
It's just your warrior spirit kind of beams out of you. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the hunting too, none that I know, so I'll never fuck with you just in case. But regardless, you know.
When the shit hits the fan, I'm going to Carrie's house.
Yeah, you gotta text me the address. I need to know when this fucking
Yeah.
where I'm going.
I'll bring the seeds.
Okay.
Sweet.
Hopefully we'll already be on our land, so it's okay. We'll all
Yeah.
be together anyway.
Awesome. Bernadette, if you wanna. You're
Yeah.
unmuted, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. First, I just want to acknowledge everyone for everything you've shared. Just really, really meaningful, and I can relate with a lot of it. But I just wanted to touch on the last thing we were talking about the acknowledgement of what she is experiencing in that moment. And sometimes, yes, the fixing or the having an answer or resolution to it, yes, very masculine, and it's incredibly frustrating at times. And I understand it comes from a really, really beautiful place. And I appreciate the men on this call acknowledging how that can not be helpful in those moments. I am a big, big fan of uncomfortable conversations. And it is something that I have learned to love through lots of practice in partnership. And so I just wanted to kind of invite the men on the call to, in those moments, it's not just enough sometimes, I don't think, to be an acknowledgement, but then to be curious about it, to really, really open up a dialogue and a container for her to be in that space and maybe be curious together to ask the questions like, you know, what would it feel like to love yourself? You know, what, you know, tell me a story at a young age of like maybe when you started believing that in order to be beautiful and of worth, this is, you know, what it looks like. Or, you know, was there an interaction? You know, like really start getting curious to have these uncomfortable conversations, because oftentimes we don't even know. And that is part of the process of like getting to the root of it, right? It's like, I don't love myself right now and I don't know why. And I'm feeling this way and you're trying to fix it. And like, let me just be in it. Sometimes we shut down, we close the door, like whatever the case may be. But it's to be in a conscious relationship, I do believe it's more than just acknowledgement. It is very much having a really, really deep sense of curiosity about what the other is experiencing and how to support them in that moment. You know, so much of this masculine feminine I've found in this last year is such a delicate dance of knowing when to be hands-on and when to back off. And that's for both partners. And so, yeah, I just wanted to invite you and to add that to the dialogue, because that is something that I have learned to start recognizing that I want and crave in those moments, and have started to become more empowered to ask for. So that's all.
I love that.
Well,
That's
and
awesome, Bernadette.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
to
good.
ask the 3 questions, which is like, do you need me to listen to you right now?
Mhm.
Do you need me to be your friend right now? Or do you need me to help you create a shift?
Yeah, what do
right
you
now?
need
Like,
right now? How can
Yeah,
I
what-
support you right now?
Right.
Yeah.
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 And I've always been a huge believer that the quality of life is just the level of conversations you're willing to have, right? Like the more pushing the conversations are, the more life
Yeah.
happens, right?
Mhm.
But it's also like, to the man that like maybe listening to this, and I say it just as a kind of like as a warning, holding space is holding space,
Mhm.
right? So you gotta be holding space, and it's not, once you offer it, you can then walk away. Right? You can just kind of run away, and it's the other side too. Like when you want to give feedback, right? If you are pursuing this conscious relationship, be mindful. It's not because you had a realization, you had a moment, maybe you had a powerful weekend, or you realize things about yourself. You go home and you're just like, don't ask for any permission. You just go to your partner and you're just like, I realized this about you, I realized this about you, I realized this about you, I realized this about myself, and all of this. Because it's not helpful, right? You also gotta ask to be listened to, the same way that you will offer to be there to listen to somebody. And if people say no, just leave the fuck alone, right? If you feel that your person, both men or women, right? Like this is the same thing with guy friends. It can be like, dude, you feel kind of weird. What's going on? I don't want to talk about it. Respect. You gotta respect people's spaces. Because if not, there's nothing worse than people that like, I just want to have deep conversations all the time. That's beautiful. But like, are we in line at fucking Chipotle and I'm ordering a bowl and you're trying to ask me my life story right now? Like, I don't, in due time, right? Like, what does that look like? Having said that, it is 9:01 my time. Once again, just want to be respectful of everybody's time. I love all of you, and some of you I didn't even know before this hour. But to me, it's just this love of women, right? This deep, deep sense of gratitude every time I get to hang out. And like really this realization that like, we don't, like, you don't need us as much as we need you guys, right? And this like deep sense of like realization of like, of course the system is the way it is, because if it wasn't, what would we do? Like, would it just keep us in a farm or a warehouse and then just need us for babies and just put us back in the warehouse? Like, what would that, what would that look like? So to me, there is always deep sense of gratitude every time I get to hang out and really get to share a safe space and an open space with powerful women that have kind of done the work to understand the deprogramming, like Jonathan said.
I feel so honored to be hosting this and to just hear people's thoughts. It's really interesting to me because I spent a lot of time like just in my own space and in my own head um, for good reason too. I don't like people's energy getting mixed up in my own because I have such a specific vibration I'm aiming for. And so it's really beautiful to hear just the little nuggets of wisdom that all you women have shared. What you said, Bernadette, was super powerful for me. Just to be able to sit with somebody that needs you to sit with them and to ask those questions. I never know what to do in those situations. I don't know if you want me to be a man and like make it happen, or if you want me to sit and be tender with you. So I really appreciated that nugget.
Yeah, to continue with that, I think sometimes we just get a little too complicated in the what ifs and trying to extrapolate what the other person might need at that time. And so I really just appreciate the simplicity of just ask, what do you need right now? And that's it. Like, so simple. And that, for me, that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from this call. So I appreciate that.
Typically when we don't know what we need, go with the just listen part. So like if we say, I don't know, like just listen then. And a great way to hold space for people is to listen and go through the pauses and let there be silence. And when they're all done, say, that must be so hard, or acknowledgement in some way where it's like just acknowledging, like, I see you, like I completely see that you're going through something really hard. And being careful with the I understand parts, because you know we don't really each know what each other's going through really.
I love silence. It's something that I've come to love as I speak, but it's really powerful. It's a powerful moment.
And I just want to, like, one last thing, like listening, but turning off that part of your brain that wants to listen and still figure it out, because we know the difference. Anyone does, right?
Yeah.
Like really dropping, like, whoa, we have a situation here on our hands. Okay, what do I need to do? Scan, assess. I'm like, okay, let me breathe. Let me drop into like feeling now. Okay. How can I support you right now? Don't know. Okay, now we're listening, but we're listening and we are now absolutely focused on what is being said. And it's practice because we all do it. But it matters. It makes huge waves.
It's like scanning female form.
Huh?
What
Yeah.
does she need? Ooh, oh, shut up. Okay, listen. Okay.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, we have no question on the live, so I don't know if anybody has any last minute parting thoughts or requests, even, as the three of us are like the volunteers of the men. So then we'll go back and let everybody know how things should be.
Go out and spread the news.
Exactly.
At least there's 3 ladies.
Bring back more.
We have them in the warehouse, so we're gonna...
Are you gonna disclose where that warehouse is?
Yeah.
I think it's somewhere by you, Renee.
Renee, where are you?
At the moment,
Where do you live?
I don't have a permanent base. At the moment, I'm on the Front Range of Colorado.
Okay.
Nice.
Not really. Not really. And again, it's all right. You know, I love having lived so many places. It's like a poo-poo platter. I have an extraordinary admiration for the beauty of every place I've lived. Being tuned. I liked what you said, Jonathan. I have a very specific vibration and intention, and it's not matching here. So I wake up out of alignment every single day, and then it creates a lot of discord and dissonance. And I'm very connected with sound. I've been touring with instruments. I'd love for them to pick up and move on their own. So I have to be really strong, you know, whether I want to be or not, because I'm my own Sherpa. I'm the everything girl, you know. So from that perspective, I've been, when I'm reprogramming that part now, I don't know if I'll call it masculine, but I do want to be open to receiving support from wherever it could come from, including the time on this call. This has just been just short of miraculous for me. And this follows up with the call I had with you, Rhonda. You really have been such an amazing influence, and I've never met you in physicality. And yet, to me, it's like, well, why does that even have to be said?
Yeah.
So thank you all. I really genuinely appreciate the safety and the ability. It's even beyond that. It's the transposition of, you know, how can we all meet and explore, because it is an exploration.
I wanted to share something about what you just said about kind of being in dissonance. For me personally, that's where I grow the most. It's like that tension being pulled back on a bow. I feel like for you, Renee, the universe is about to launch you in a really beautiful direction. Hold on to that dissonance, love it, appreciate all the annoying bits of it, because it's about to launch that cacophony into harmony. So I definitely think it's a beneficial thing to sit in the things we do not like.
Well, and I know each one of you on this call very personally and very lovingly, and there's some incredible women on this call, and each one of you is just doing such deep work and sharing your ways in such beautiful ways. You're all medicine in yourself, and I am so honored to get to walk with each and every one of you and the men on the call. I feel the same, like we get to learn from each other and grow from each other, and I love to have a network and connection of brotherhood, brothers who are just open and willing to show up in these conversations. And the three of you have both been on, you know, these calls, and we just want to keep creating more conscious conversation where we can come together and actually find out the things that we're wondering and thinking. So that's why we designed this master classes, because like there's some shit that I need to know and I can't seem to figure it out. So why don't we just ask each other rather than just pretend to know? So I see
Awesome.
you all. Yeah.
And kind of following up on that, we're gonna have a man and woman's call
Next
week.
Yay!
So we'd love to have you all and your partners if you have any, or not if you don't want to talk with them. And
Your pets.
my pets, yeah. Sorry, my bulldog, she kind of snores a lot, but I've come to love it. I actually have a really hard time sleeping when she's not in the room. So it's kind of like a white noise machine. So yeah. So I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to say. If not, we're gonna kind of close out this conversation. And once again, I'm deeply, deeply grateful. And yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye
Good
bye.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Welcome. Please join for the people watching this video that are in the Facebook Live. Please jump on, opt in, join our masterclass series. Get over being shy. You can have your camera not on if you don't want people to see you, but it's time for us to start asking the questions and start to be more vulnerable with ourselves. It's time to expand.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Bye.